What is up? Brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. I'm Mike. With me is Kevin Josh. The Hounds failed to show up against Louisville, and we're going to talk about what that means moving forward. Let's go.
Is that our first downtrodden let's go of the season? I think even the last time we lost games, you were still giving it your good old college try.
Well, okay, so last time, the last show we had was after we lost against Vegas, and I think I was very excited to try the fall off screen while I say let's go because I feel awkward saying it while facing everybody. And then even that didn't work because I had to go back and forth because I kept clicking the thing to play and it wouldn't play, and this time it played.
Maybe you were just really excited because you were about ready to go to Disney.
What a segue.
Segue. Hey, Josh, guess what we did last week?
What'd you do?
We didn't go to Disney.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened?
So literally 2 days before we were supposed to leave, my wife started to feel sick.
Oh, no.
And we were like, oh, it's just like the flu or it's no big deal. So this was Wednesday night. We were leaving Saturday morning. Literally our flight left Saturday morning at 6 a.m. And Wednesday night we get a phone call that a family member that we were in contact with over Easter had COVID.
Oh.
So Susan took a COVID test, came back positive. So Thursday morning turned into this scramble of what do we do? Because I was like, if she has it, I almost certainly have it, and the boys most certainly have it. So there was a whole lot of conversation amongst all the family members, and ultimately the family decided to pull the plug on the trip, and none of us went. At the time, we were like, was it the right decision? We could have worn a mask, could have been okay on the plane. We would have worn a mask, everything. But honestly, Susan felt like garbage all weekend. And then Ollie got it Saturday and felt like crap. Ben and Ems got it Sunday and felt like crap through Monday. I had symptoms from Friday through yesterday, but didn't test positive until last Wednesday. So literally yesterday was the first day that I felt normal, okay, in a week and a half. And I still have this cough and I still have this nagging thing. But yeah, we did not go to Disney. So good times.
So you guys didn't go to Disney. Kevin, did you guys sneak into Disney without telling them?
No. That would have been a good ruse, though.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. I ended up I did one of those half and half things where I already, told everyone at work, hey, I'm out. Don't put the automatic stuff on my email. And I was like, well, I can work half of the time and just not tell anyone I'm working. and I was like, I let the one person I needed to know. I was like, hey, don't tell anyone. I want to keep my calendar free of meetings, but I'll be working on these 3 days. And she's like, got it. So that was but I still got to take off some time, which was nice. But
I'm just imagining an episode of Seinfeld where you tell everyone at work you're going to Disney still because you want to have the time off, but you have to pretend like you're at Disney now. So now you're doing stuff tweeting stuff about Disney, sending them pictures with you photoshopped in the Magic Kingdom in the background.
Yeah,
and it
so
just
much
escalates and escalates and escalates until finally you're the boss is also at Disney. He wants to meet up to talk about promotion. This is a complete episode of Seinfeld I can picture in my mind happening.
Yep. That's very Costanza. Yeah, that's great.
So you take a flight out last minute.
And then I get COVID on the flight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. No, I mean, even when it went down, we were like, okay, so we're not going to get on a plane, but we had even half talked about well, Kev, you guys are off. Maybe we'll drive down and get a place in the Smokies for the week. And then just literally we all just kept feeling crap. So we're like, well, we'll just wait a day. We'll just wait a day. We'll just wait. And the next thing we know, it was yesterday. And it was well, not doing that. So now we are supposed to go down to Asheville, which is in the Smokies, like the third week in June as sort of like the consolation trip. So we'll get together with everybody then, spend some time in the Smokies and hang out.
Asheville, just as good as Disney. That's their tagline.
That's right. I mean, it's
exactly.
Look, honestly, we had a lot of conversations about it, and like, what's interesting is there was a lot of like, well, what's the one thing you'd be really upset if you missed? And like, my family, Kevin's crew, like we kept having a hard time coming up with something because we just like want to go away and hang out together. So like, it doesn't really matter where we go. So we were like, if that's the case, like, why are we dropping so much money on Disney? Instead, we could just get like a big house in Asheville and like go hiking and horseback riding and like do cool stuff like that, and it'll be fine. So, so that's the plan for now. But yeah, I felt a little bit bad. I think when the news went down, Kevin was like, "I'm not doing a show on Monday," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing a show on Monday either. We're gonna skip it." I didn't feel like watching the game. It was great that the Hounds beat Atlanta 4-0. Yeah, I do want to talk about that in a minute, but I will say, be careful out there, because 2 weeks ago when I went to order some tests, they were like everywhere. I tried to order more tests last week, couldn't find them. And my company had a social event in San Diego last week where everybody got together for a few days, which was why it was great. Like, I didn't have to worry about really work or anything. We are already getting emails back this week of people being exposed and that being a COVID thing. So this latest variant is just ripping through, and I have this weird suspicion that it's not getting reported on as much because a lot of people are taking at-home tests and just not reporting it to the CDC. And so it's just like nobody really knows what's happening, but it's happening. So, yeah. We were okay. It was miserable. There were times that I was just in a fog and coughing, but nothing severe. I felt bad. My youngest, when we like told him, his face like dropped, and then after a minute, he was like, "Wait, you mean we're not going to die?" I was like, "No." I was like, "You got the vaccine. This is why we have the vaccine. Like, we'll be okay." And he felt miserable for a day or two, and then he bounced back and was fine. But yeah, so be careful out there, everybody. It's not. Yeah,
I'm glad everyone's okay, and you can laugh about the whole thing now.
Well,
I'm sure your kids are laughing about it right now.
Listen, there was a lot of like, what do you guys want to do this week that happened last week?
Want to order pizza? Let's order pizza,
that's
guys.
Right, yeah. Lots of like Five Guys and Chipotle and pizza, and there was a lot of that because we felt really bad about it. But yeah. So that's what we did last week. Josh, I do want to talk. So since the last episode, we lost to Cincy, which I don't want to spend a ton of time on in the Open Cup because it feels like it was ages ago. That was a game that felt like the guys put out a decent effort, but it was against an MLS team, and in the end, they were sort of hard done by some officiating calls and whatever. It's the Open Cup. You want to see us keep going. You see Detroit beat, Columbus in extra time, and you're like, oh, that could have been us. But again, Detroit was home, and yada yada yada. So that happened, and then we have a sellout game in the middle of April against Atlanta and win 4-0. You were there. Like, this typically doesn't happen till like end of August type stuff. What was going on against Atlanta?
It was just a fantastic day as far as weather goes. I feel like it was just a culmination of like that. Ticketing office had been on their game. They had done some promotions for this game, and like, really, it just kind of all fell into place to be a sellout crowd. And like, contacted, I think Tuffy was like, just all the smoke. If we score, just all the smoke. Like, I want people to know across the city that the Hounds are playing tonight. So I was like, all right, Tuffy, let's do this. So bring out more smoke columns. And
do you have just like a black and gold phone that just when it rings, that it's Tuffy, and you're like, all the smoke, got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So like, it was just like there was a buzz just because it was so busy and nice night, and like it was a fun tailgate, and that was a hell of a game. It was just fun. I mean, It hasn't been like that. It felt like a playoff as far as like crowd. felt like, the playoffs. And especially since like usually if we get a crowd like that, it is the playoffs or it's like 4th of July. And like people are there because they're really there for the fireworks. But the game is just like a good afterthought. But this was all about the game. So it was really cool. I had a blast. And hopefully we can do that again on the 7th, although unfortunate for the Hounds, Penguins playoff game, 7:00 on the 7th, exact same time. So it's like, well, son of a. So we'll see.
Word on the street is the Penguins won't make it past the first round. So we only have to deal with that for a few more weeks.
I wish no ill will on the Penguins.
I wish no ill will on the Penguins either. I'm just passing along information that I've heard secondhand. No, and I mean,
what, you hang out with like soothsayers who know how to play
I do.
Work?
I hang out with whoever does Malkin's pedicures, and that's what they told me. So
he's like, I'm gonna throw it. Bet against.
That's right.
He has a terrible hangnail.
That's right. No, Tuffy came out on Twitter, had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, and was like, for all of those, media outlets that don't want to cover us, and like for everyone that said years ago that this couldn't be done, like here we are selling out in April and 4-0 win, and it's just the start. Let's go. And so, I think it's what you like to see, right? I mean,
Tuffy have a chip on his shoulder? That doesn't sound like Tuffy. I don't know about that. Like he's usually pretty level-headed and cool and collect. Mr. Cucumber is what they call him.
That's right. But no, I'm very interested to see how this translates into this game this weekend against Birmingham. I like you said, the Pens are playing, but if the team can, average more sellouts than not the rest of the way, like that's fantastic. And Kev, you've talked about for years about like, let's fill the stadium to 2/3 on average before we start talking about expanding. And Tuffy's talked about expansion, and a lot of the guys in the team have talked about expansion. And now it's just like, let's show them why. Like, let's fill the stands and show them why. So
I mean, I thought the Atlanta game, it's like peak Hounds, right? I mean, like full stadium, beautiful weather, home. We played so well. We completely dominated the game. We looked very fluid. Scored 4 goals, scored 4 good goals. Just impressed with everyone on the field. And I mean, it was I short of winning, a playoff game or a home playoff game or against I was gonna say against the big rival, but even at that, like this was just perfect. Like especially contrasted against what happened in Cincy, contrasted against the Vegas experience with like the bad camera angle and like the bad field and the loss in Vegas. When you come back and you see Highmark and you see Highmark full, you see people enjoying themselves on the beautiful backdrop of the city and us winning 4-0, it's, it was peak like Riverhound fandom. It was almost the perfect day. Well, it was the perfect day. It was great.
And for a lot of people at that game, I mean, they probably don't come to a lot of games, if any game before. And so like them seeing the Hounds dominate, they don't know MLS 2 team, like they don't know that Atlanta 2 is like one of the worst teams in the league or anything like that. Yeah. So just watching the Hounds score goal after goal after goal in a packed stadium, like that's going to be something that's going to bring people back. And that's exactly what you want, especially with the nice weather that day. And I will say this is one thing about the broadcast that's kind of makes me sad is like you can't really tell what's going on in the stadium from the broadcast because you can only see the skyline, which is a great view for the broadcast, but you can't really see the crowd. And like I feel like they don't mic up the crowd that great in Highmark, so like you can't really hear the crowd that as much, or like the Steel Army section that much. So it kind of has a little bit quieter of a sound than some other broadcasts.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Is that something that the club can control, or is that USL stuff?
I mean, the club hires the camera crew and everything like that shoots the game. So I mean, it is within their ability to ask, but they don't shoot it themselves. So it's very much a contract out.
I think it's a really good point, though. I mean, I've heard people talk about that's one of the seemingly small but kind of important distinctions that has made the Premier League the dominant kind of entertainment content country for soccer, amongst a lot of other things. But small things where like they turn, I guess a lot of the other countries, and maybe they're changing this now, but historically a lot of the other countries would point mics towards the field to catch player sounds, someone hitting the ball or a tackle goes in. And the Premier League turns the mics around to face the crowd to get, and sell that kind of crowd experience. And so, I think it's seemingly maybe a small thing, but I think it's really important to fully capture the atmosphere of Highmark.
Well, I mean, one of the things, my wife hates watching sports on TV, but she loves going to Hounds games, and it's because of the atmosphere in the stands. And I think that could be said for most soccer games. I think there's a lot of people that hate watching soccer on TV, but love being there in person. So how do you best capture that and convey that? And maybe it is through just like have the Steel Army mic'd up the whole game. Heck with what's going on in the field. I mean, a lot of people like to hear Lily, but like Josh,
put it on like a thing where they can like turn it down every once in a while when there's some stuff happening, but like turn it back up at other times.
Hearing constant, Steel Army might not be great.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I feel like I'd be constantly just vibrating, right? And sometimes
standpoint.
Yeah, I don't want fines to happen. So like every once in a while, but especially in situations like this where the stadium's full, I know they have cameramen actually on the field where they can do like ground level shots. Like just have one of the people with the cameras on the other side where they can actually shoot an angle that shows the grandstand, so that way you can still see oh wow, look, there's the whole stadium, and not just the skyline, which I mean obviously beautiful skyline, you want that to be the majority of the shots just because it is just nice to look at.
Yeah for sure. So the Hound
I was
gonna say the Hounds have a really good night last Saturday night, thinking that okay, we got a lot of momentum. We're going to head off to Louisville. We're going to, battle for the top two teams in the East. And then, we forgot to get off the bus, or I don't even know. So the Hounds lose to Louisville 2-0. It felt like from the start, Lily was trying to change things and make adjustments based on what Louisville was doing, swapping defender positions to try to keep up with speed coming down the sides. And I mean, overall, it seemed like the guys just didn't perform. And so I don't, is that too harsh of an assessment? I don't know. Kev, what did you think about this game?
I mean, I remember in the preseason, the schedule comes out and we start kind of, looking at the schedule, identifying the big games, trying to predict how, the first part of the season is going to go. And I think, I remember I kind of pointed it out and a few other people, I think, agreed with me. Sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm not, but that
wouldn't be the first time. Go ahead. Yeah,
I know that Louisville was the kind of the kind of early season finish line marker where this was going to be the game where everything kind of led up to, and this was going to be the first time that we felt we were going to be truly tested against a club that knows how to manage itself, a club that has done very well, a rival. And, I've said Louisville is our marker. Once we start beating Louisville a bit more regularly and finishing above Louisville season in and season out, then we know we would have had cemented ourselves into this new place as a club, as a premier club. We've done really well over the past few seasons with Lily. But I think, kind of finishing above Louisville establishes us. And unfortunately, I mean, it would have been nice to see us go toe to toe and play the way we know we can against the likes of Atlanta and, even Cincy really. And it just didn't happen. So that it's really a really bad taste in the mouth, because it could have been it would have been so much I take a loss. if we go, toe to toe with them, put up chances, and it's just a good game, that's great. But the way we give up the goal, the first goal, just a bad pass out from the keeper, and then even the second one, it's the keeper should probably be doing better. The guy just kind of puts his foot through it and essentially shoots it just like a foot away from
it. It deflected off Wheat, but I don't fully disagree.
So and then we just don't create a ton of chances, and so it's a shame. I mean, all of that being said, going to Louisville in that stadium against that team, that's probably our hardest game of the season for me. So to get out of there and kind of get that taste out of our mouth, hopefully that'll be, good for us for the rest of the season. But no, we didn't play well, and I think that's the most frustrating thing. It becomes so much more digestible if we play the way we know we can and still lose. That's fine, but to just kind of give a wasted chance like that and kind of give them the psychological edge that's not great.
Josh, what do you think about it?
Crap. I mean, it was just a bad game, and it was a situation where, like, I think about the Cincy game and how we performed against Cincy, and like, do we think Cincy is better than Louis, or do we think Louis is better than Cincy, like, by a lot? Like, I don't think they probably are. I think they're probably, the point that I'm trying to make is, like, we showed up for that game, and even though we lost, we looked great doing it, for lack of a better way of saying it. It just like we put up a fight, and in this game it just felt like we fell apart, and things just kept on falling apart throughout the whole game. I watched the first half live. I actually was at a concert, and like it was like the opening acts, stage AE outdoors. So it's just sitting there with my phone, me and another Steel Army board member, Don, like just watching it on my phone as like the first couple openers play, and it was just terrible. It's like, okay, we're done. We're turning off the phone now. Hang out at the concert, and then came back the next day to watch the rest of the game. And it's just like it did not get better.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of discussion. Steve brings up the point in chat. This is our first loss in the regular season since 2017. Do we really care about the performance that much, or is it about the end of season standings and advancing farther than them? I think, there's a lot of like, we're looking at the standings too early. Like, does it really matter? And I think, Kev, to your point, for years, I mean, literally, it's probably been the past 4 years, we've looked at Louisville as like this barometer. It's this litmus test of like, what kind of organization are we? And, when Louisville has gone through 2 coaching changes, I think, since Lily got here, they've opened this new stadium. We beat them there last year. I get that. You would sort of expect some drop off. And as an organization, we can do nothing but tip our caps to them. So you want to see us show up and give it our all. And I think that's where the frustration comes into play, is that, Kev, to your point, if we went there and we played the best we possibly could and we still lost, I think you go, okay, great. Like, it's the Cincy thing. Like, okay, great. We left it all on the field. We still didn't measure it. Fine. But that wasn't the case here. Like, guys just didn't show up. And for that, like, I don't know what you do about that. Like, Lily's got to be furious, but part of me also, we talked about just sort of the depth of this team, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm the one early on that was like, I don't think this team's going to lose because of the depth on this team. I'm starting to see a drop off in some of the depth that we thought that we had, and I think there's some players that Lily feels the need to rotate in that aren't as good as some of the other players that we either have on the bench or he's rotating in for. So
let's go, Mike. Name names.
Okay, so the past few games, it seems like Lily has pulled out Alex Dixon and put in Argudo, and they're 2 totally different players. When you're down 2-0 and you need a creative spark to score some goals, taking off Alex Dixon, in my opinion, is the wrong move. I think the other call that we were sort of discussing in our chat is Biasi. I think that too many times Biasi tries to take on players when he shouldn't take on players and loses the ball. And over the past few weeks, Dos Santos has shown himself to be a more reliable option. And I just don't understand why we're making some of these decisions. Go ahead, John.
And this is where it comes to a situation with this season that I'm particularly noticing, where it's like we don't know what's going on. Like, we don't know injuries. We don't know who. Like, it feels like something's happening that we're just not privy to. Like, I can't imagine some of these calls are because he actually thinks that Lily actually thinks certain players, don't deserve to make the bench. Because I feel like players we think should be making the bench are not making the bench. And that,
like specifically Sims and Dambrot, like two outside backs that Sims had 2 goals in the one Open Cup game, and Dambrot was like all world when the season started, and neither one of them were making the bench. So
yeah, and like I feel like it has to be that they're injured. Has to be. Like, I don't know why they would not be making the bench. So like, if they're injured, cool, that's good to know. But we just don't know, and it seems weird to me that we don't know that. Like, I don't know. I don't think this is a tactic thing, or at least I don't understand this tactic. If it is,
yeah. I mean, excuse me. The one of the other big talking points, the game was beyond reach at this point, but subbing in Dane Kelly, and it felt like 5 minutes later he gets a straight red. Like, I'm really hoping that the Hounds contest that and we get that pulled back, because even on the replays, I'm just saying, even on the replays, the announcers are like, "Look how his hand comes over the top. His hand, the hand that came over the top missed the defender entirely. Like, didn't even touch him." So, like, I don't know where the red comes from, honestly.
And like, at that point, the red doesn't, like, for this game, I don't feel like it mattered. Like, it wasn't like, oh man, we wouldn't have gotten that red, we would have been on a tear. No. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. It's just insult to injury at that point. It's like, really, this late in the game, giving a red for something as silly as that, as small as that. It's like barely a yellow, and you're giving a red for that. All right, whatever, cool. This game sucks. Yeah. Like,
I felt like that was my reaction at that point. Was like, I wasn't about to stand up and shout about it, because it was like we weren't going to get 2 goals back anyway. No. So like, it's
just disappointing that it was Kelly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, the person we don't want to get a red, the person that we want to see in every single game gets that red.
Yeah. Kev, you mentioned sort of the keeper. I think one of the other talking points for me, at least, is Jamali Waite. I think that's 3 starts in a row now for him, when Lily has really sort of looked at keeper rotation, and I think there's been a lot of discussion of like, who is the guy. And I think after his performance at Cincy, there was a lot of like, could he be the guy? And to be fair, he stopped, what was it, 2 point-blank shots at the end of the game to keep it at 2-0 instead of 3 or 4-0. But the pass, the errant pass for the first goal was sloppy, and like I said, I give him a pass on the second goal because it did deflect off of Shane Wheat, who I thought did not have a good game in this one either. But yeah,
I didn't see the deflection. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I thought he played really well against Cincy. So yeah, I'm not trying to say for Louisville, because I mean, those, like, that errant pass, sometimes you just get in a groove, you get in a rhythm, and you're just kind of doing what feels right, and then that pass just goes there. And it's just a shame that they punish us so well for it. I think that's the thing, is he's front and center at, I was going to say the scene of the crime, but it's a petty crime, but it's still a crime. Like, you shouldn't be, I don't know, that it's a bad pass, and it ends up looking bad on you. So I haven't been completely convinced by either keeper so far, Silva included, but I don't know, maybe that's because I don't ever felt like either keeper hasn't won us a game yet. You know what I mean? Like I think there have been times in the past where, a keeper stands on their head and we get a draw because of it. But out of memory, I can't recall anything that's happened this season. So yeah, I mean, I haven't been entirely attached to it, and everything's been more focused on the attacking side of the field. But yeah, so I'm kind of ambivalent towards the keeper situation at this point. Not ambivalent because it's incredibly important, but
playing out of the back and then having it go directly into the goal is, well, not directly, but pretty much because of you playing it poorly out of the back. That's, man, well, one, it sucks, obviously, and like as a fan, you're just like, head in hands, just shaking and like can't believe that happened. Can't believe that it's such a weak type, like of unforced error, essentially. And then also though, as a player, I can't imagine trying to come back from that, trying to not let you have to forget it and then keep on playing. And getting those saves later on in the game, is a good sign that he was able to kind of like take it out of his mind and keep on playing. But yeah, in that second goal, I'm not blaming that one on him.
I think that's a really good point, though. I mean, I think in a tough game like this, where you could be excused for being nervous before the game, going away against a rival, a very good team, bigger stadium, and so sometimes in those environments, you're just like, all right, let's get through the first 20. Let's get through the first 20 or 25, and if we just hang on, we can work our way into this game and kind of give ourselves a fighting chance. And when if you get beat by a good play and something, okay, fine. But when you get beat like that, and you're just like, oh crap.
Well,
and it just, I think it's easy for everyone just to get in the mindset of like, oh, it's going to be one of those days. Okay. And it's hard to come back from them in that situation.
Well, and I also think that based on what we've seen earlier this season, nobody was thinking like, oh, let's just go to Louis and hang on. Like, I think we were looking at this like we're averaging like 3-4 goals a game. Like, let's just go and like have at it and have a grunge match. And it's
weird though. I mean, for me, I don't did. Mike, is that how you? I mean, so I'll just like for me going into this game, I think I had that mentality all the way up until like a half hour before the game, and I'm like, oh crap, wait, it's Louisville. and no, I think memories flood in of what Louisville has meant to us in the past, et cetera, and then I kind of had a different outlook on it. But did you have?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I felt good. Look, looking back, during the first 5 games of the season, we averaged 2.4 goals per game. So, like, my thought is like, sure, Louisville's going to score on us, absolutely, but like, we're going to put some away, and so to come away with nothing, it's like, ugh. Like the past 3 games, we had 2 shutouts against us, and then we had Atlanta that had 4. So, like, that sort of pads our numbers a bit, but. I was not expecting just like nothing. I mean, I think the only shot we had on target was Dixon's little like walk the sideline and rip it right at Kyle Morton, who just parried it away. Like that's pretty much it. And we have guys that you could tell were trying to stand up, like Cicerone. When things aren't going well, Cicerone tries to stand on his head and just try to make stuff happen himself. But like, it's not gonna do it, especially against the Louisville. So
yeah, I mean, regular season Louisville doesn't scare me. Playoff season, Louisville, that's who we have to worry about. So I wasn't going into this game thinking like, oh man, we're gonna barely hold on. I was thinking, we might get a draw, but it's gonna be a tough game and it's gonna be fun to watch. And it was neither of those. It was
things.
Neither. It was terrible to watch.
So my conundrum at this point is there a lot else that we should really try to dissect from this game, or do we just sort of chalk it up to like the guys didn't show up and we just sort of move on to the next game and sort of see what happens? I don't see this as being a trend per se. After what we saw against Cincy, Vegas was a bit of a conundrum because of just everything we've talked about related to Vegas. And then, clearly we show up against Atlanta. It's Atlanta, but like, it will be interesting. We're only 8 games in, so we're not technically looking at the standings yet, but it will be interesting to start to see how the Hounds do against teams that are sort of in a playoff-ish position after 10 games. But right now, the difference between 3rd and 8th is 3 points. So like you can't even put much weight into that. So
we can look at the standings now.
No, we can't. Not yet. Stop. It's not yet.
Not yet. 10 games.
Not until we get to 10 games. We're only at 8. There are some teams that are at 9. Just wait.
He's looking at standings right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Sounds like.
So is there anything else that we want to talk about as it relates to this game, or anything else that we think that we can take away from this game, other than it was just like the guys didn't show up, it was a crappy night, let's turn the page and focus on Birmingham and see how many points we can get the next few?
I think you can. Like, I'm more interested in what Bob's going to take away from this game. Like, I don't really think there's not much more I can take away from this game, but I'm really curious what he is taking away from this and figuring out what to do to make sure this doesn't happen again, and to like kind of learn from this, have this team learn from it. Because I'm really curious, because I do feel like there's, has to be a wake up call, and it has to be, kind of like just something that they can do out of this game and realize their faults and realize where they need work. Because I don't want to think of this as a one-off, like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, it happens. Like, no, this was a big deal game, and we should have taken it as such. And it felt like the players didn't, or if they did and they weren't able to perform, that's a bigger issue. So
I will say my one bright spot, my one shout out will be Danny Griffin. I thought that he had a pretty decent game. There were a couple of moments that I tweeted about specifically where you could see him thinking ahead of the play and moving into positions to make the next play, which is the kind of thing you want to see guys do. And then at the end of the game, Lily moved him back to, right back? And like he played right back and like covered and did everything he needed. I mean, there's nothing but a bright future for Danny Griffin. It's just a shame that, nothing else really sort of came off. So,
yeah, I mean, his engine is pretty crazy. I mean, I remember watching the Cincy game, and you're like 115 minutes in, and he's still closing down people. Yeah. And he plays every minute of every game, in the season. No, I agree with Josh. I think it's so attractive to just say, we didn't show up and let's move past it. But, I think everyone knew what this game was. It was an important test to see how good we really are. And, we didn't show up. And even if you don't, on some level, I mean, we're reading into a lot of things here. I'm reading into a lot of things here. I'm speculating a lot here. On some level, it would have been almost better if we were just kind of outplayed. And there were just a few structural things that we can work on as far as formation and pressing and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, to just kind of play the way we did, I don't know if that's more of a mental thing that needs to be worked on across the dressing room about, being champions and just and playing like it. And so, but yeah, it was a very disappointing moment in the season so far that I'm not, by no means is this like baby out with the bathwater kind of stuff. I think we still have, we're a very good team. I think the season still is very bright for us. And a lot of really good things can and most likely will come from this season. But this was the game to kind of check everything against, and we came up short. And, there needs to be an understanding of how and why that happened, and try to fix it pretty quickly.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, that's what we think about this game. Let us know what you think. We constantly mention now that there's lots of other outlets to hear what other people think as well. So if you don't agree with us, go check out Houndsy. Go check out, the UK Hounds podcast. Lots of great coverage out there. And I'll be interested to hear what those guys think as well. I want to listen in and get their thoughts. But turning the page a bit, the Hounds are back home this weekend on Saturday. Birmingham, come to town, 7 p.m. Obviously, I think we're hoping for a similar turnout and experience as we had against Atlanta. That would be huge, another sellout. But as Josh mentioned, Penn's playoffs, so we'll see. A little bit about Birmingham. This is not the Birmingham of last year, at least not early stages. So they started the season 1-3-2. Now they've won their last 2 games against Loudoun and the Battery, but those 2 teams have a combined 3 wins between them after 8 games. So those are not good teams at this point. So not a lot of great things that can be said about Birmingham. They do have Ryan James. They do have Tommy V. This was the matchup that I think we were hoping for to start the playoffs last year, and then the team got COVID, and we just couldn't play.
Do they still have Nico, too?
No, Nico, they do not. Nico's out west with New Mexico. He was with. I want to say he was with New Mexico last year, but
he's with
no Nico. Yeah, no, they don't have Nico, but they have Juan Agudelo, who they just recently signed. Juan Agudelo is a former U.S. men's national team player. He played with, I believe it was the Red Bulls 1 team for years. I was a big fan of his. The guy can move. Now, I haven't seen him in the past probably 5 or 6 years, so I don't know what sort of happened and how he's ended up in the USL. But he's a good player, and he's a good attacker. So the team does play, or not us, Birmingham play midweek against Miami. So that'll be one thing to keep an eye on. They're going to be coming to us slightly tired, so that's a positive for us. Hopefully, another route for us would be good. But I mean, Josh? What are you hoping for in this one?
I mean, a win. I feel like we have to bounce back. We have to show up for the home crowd, kind of build off the success that we had against Atlanta, and just show up and show that the Louisville game isn't going to define us, is going to, be a paradigm shift for this team, that it's just a bump in the road and not a trend. So, yeah, show up. This is a team that we can win against. This is a winnable game. I am curious about Agudelo, but at the same time, looking at his stats from more recently, not that great. I mean, Inter Miami in 2020, then Minnesota United, and now the Legion, and 3 goals out of about 20, 30 games. So yeah, I'm not too worried about him, but it will be interesting to see how he is now playing in USL. Yeah. So yeah,
agreed. Kev, do you have anything you're looking for in particular after sort of what happened at Louisville back at Highmark Stadium against Birmingham?
No, I mean, Josh's point of bouncing back, I think, is really important. I mean, I've heard, retired soccer players talk about how important it is to, bounce back after a loss, and not only to kind of set your mind straight, but to kind of get momentum back on your side. I've heard people who are on teams that eventually go and challenge for titles or whatever, and stressing the importance of, when you lose, you have to win the next game. You can't lose 2 in a row. And that next game is just vital. And so, I mean, it's a big game, and luckily it's at Highmark, and Steve brought up the good point of we're pretty good at home. We have some issues on the road, which could be an interesting topic to talk about eventually. But yeah, no. So it's an important game to bounce back. I think we showed the capability to do so when we played, Cincy, and then played very well against Atlanta, against a long game, away game. So we have it in us. We finally get the Birmingham game we've been wanting, and I mean, not really, but yeah, it'll be an important game.
Yeah, agreed. I don't really have anything else to add. I think it's going to be a good, fun night. Unfortunately, like we said, it's opposite of Penn's game, so hopefully that doesn't impact the crowd too much. But
I'm looking forward to seeing Ryan James and Funky Zeal. I mean, those are 2 players that Josh. Those are two players. Those are two players that like I like them as Hounds players. So I mean, yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. I hope Rivera or whoever like clatters into them in the first 5 minutes. But yeah.
Nah. My shaking the head no is I'm just not excited to see them playing against us. I never am. Like those are, like you said, two great players that I know how good they can be and do not wish to play against.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, it should be a good game. I'm predicting a win as well. I think we have to bounce back. We have a bit of an interesting stretch coming up. So we have Birmingham at home, and then we have El Paso comes to home. And then after that, we hit the road. We play the Florida teams. We play the Rowdies and Miami to close out May before coming back and playing Detroit in June. So the next 4 games are going to be very interesting. Birmingham might be the weakest team out of those 4. So if we don't get a win here, I think we got some worrying to do. So I think the guys bounce back. I think they get a win here, and then I think we turn and set our sights on El Paso next week. We go from there.
I think it's an interesting point. I was going to say it's an interesting point of the season where I think historically, fine, let's say after 10 games, but it's been this is when we usually turn it on, and so it's been different so far this season because it felt like up until the Louisville game, we had where we hit the ground running. So historically speaking, this is where we're going to run. So let's see what happens.
Agreed. Anybody predicting anything but a win here? There's literally zero movement on camera, so everyone here is predicting.
We all froze.
Yeah, like I actually I don't know if you did the same, but I kind of just shifted my gaze to Kevin's camera, waiting for him to say something.
No, I mean, I think I've been realistic in the past when I felt like I try to be realistic all the time, and I try to call out draws or potential losses when I see them, and I think this will be a good game for us.
Awesome. Well, that is what we think. Let us know what you think, gentlemen. Anything else for this episode before we
Happy birthday, Bob Lilly.
Happy birthday, Bob. I felt like maybe we should sing, but I'm not going to sing.
No, we're good. We're good.
We're not
I don't think Bob would like that.
Bob would be like, "Why would you do that? Don't do that."
Podcast off.
Right, yeah.
If he knew how to turn a podcast on, it would be podcast off.
Truth. But yes, happy birthday, Bob Lilly. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us live tonight. For those of you who joined us live, thanks for everybody who joined us on the podcast. As always, we appreciate the support. Let's go Hounds. What
we should really do what?
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I was we should really just do the numbers on this. Every time we lose, I'm sure we average about 10 minutes shorter of an episode. Every time we win, I feel like every time we win, we easily do an hour. And now it's like, yeah, we're good. We have nothing to say.
Listen, to be fair, when we started the show, I think Josh was like, we'll just spend 30 minutes talking about Disney. And you and I, Kev, were like, well, that's not gonna
I
happen.
thought that was going to pad the show a lot more. I did not know you guys did not go to Disney. And so now I'm just like, well, crap.
Yeah.
I went to Girl Talk. I can talk about that concert for a little bit, I guess. But yeah, it was a DJ concert. He pushed play on his on his set and then danced around on the stage with a bunch of people. That's pretty much it.
I mean, there is something there about, do we just do a worse job analyzing losses, or do we just not? Kev, I do think that there's some.
I think we do.
I don't want to spend more time on this than we really need to. But there's the old adage, Kev, that I think you were the first one to point out, and that's like whenever we lose, Lily's always really complimentary to the guys, and whenever we win, he's always a bit more critical. And I think we tend to fall into the same tropes where it's just like we lose, and we're like, well, it was a bad day. Like, we're not going to nitpick specific little things. The guys will turn around and they'll fix it. And when we win, we're like, yeah, that was great. But what about this one thing? We'd like to see that be better. And there's been a lot of that critical type talk so far this season. It hasn't all been just like patting ourselves on the back. So, yeah, you don't want to get too high. You don't want to get too low. You want to stay a bit even keel. And I think that's kind of.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I think we have the space to explore that differently because we're not, we're not talking to players. We're not talking, it's not our job to coach them. But no, I think naturally, we probably have those human tendencies to probably feel that way for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we could totally fill time. I think one of the tropes that are like,
don't do
what are there more wheels or doors in the world, Kev?
Have you heard this one? Like at least 2 months late on this trend.
I know, I'm totally late on this. But that was the first thing that came to mind. Have you heard this?
No.
I don't really want to talk about it.
I can't imagine Kevin being the type of person who's like on TikTok or Twitter and being like checking out the new trends.
No. I heard this on an Aston Villa podcast, but the question is are there more doors or wheels in the world?
We're not doing this, are we?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Think about it and let us know what you think. Are there more wheels or doors in the world? Not that anybody really cares. We're just filling time at this point because, whatever. This is your weekly reminder that Black Lives Matter. We are proudly part of the Beautiful Game Network, which is home to more than 100 volunteer writers and podcasters covering local soccer. Help us all keep doing what we're doing. Head to bgn.fm, click the donate button to help us cover our expenses, and thank you for your support. Otherwise, thanks, everybody. We will talk to you very, very soon.